When choosing a game to show you, at least one game to demonstrate how top players are playing, how chess is being played, well, I was thinking a lot which one should I take. Some historical classical game, maybe one of my own games, but it's sometimes nice to see a game of the one that was presenting you this video for several hours. But then I was thinking, okay, there was a World Championship match played this year between the world champion Anand, that has been defending his title. This is the third time that successfully he defends his title. He defended in 2008, 2010 and 2012. Considered one of the strongest players in the last 20 years in the world. He is 42, 43 years of age, so he has made it to the top of the chess world already in the early 20s, which is very, very normal to chess. Today, actually, amazingly enough, people can become, super top players before 20. Magnus Carlsen, which is the #1 rated player in the world, not the world champion, but the #1 rated player in the world, is just 20 and a bit. Sergei Karyakin, exactly the same age as Carlsen. American Hikaru Nakamura, all of those are 22, 25. I don't even want to mention Fabiano Caruana, born in the United States or now lives in Italy, where originally is from, less than 20, 17, 18. So chess has become much younger age in that sense. So Anand in his 40s being still keeping the world title is impressive. His opponent in this game, Boris Gelfand from ex-Soviet Union, has been living in Israel for the past, I would say, 15, almost maybe 20 years. In the early 90s he came there. Always been at the top of the chess world, top 10 I would say, top 15. Never really considered a world champion challenger, but amazingly enough he managed to make it all the way up and play against Anand for this World Championship title. Everyone was pretty much favoring Anand huge, but well, the match had completely different life. The first 6 games were draws, and Gelfand was the first one to strike in game 7 and win. It was the best out of 12, so he's leading now 4-3, and if he just managed to make 5 draws or score 2.5, he will be shockingly one of the greatest upsets in ever chess history. Anand didn't want to allow that. Opening with the D pawn, we mentioned, to the center. Black developing first his knight, controlling those squares. Another pawn to the center. There are many systems that can be considered here. Either helping to put a pawn in the center with e6 and d5, opening the diagonal for this bishop. Many systems, from Queen's Gambit accepted, Queen's Gambit decline, Nimzo Indian. Those are all just weird names for you, but well, one of our future videos, hopefully we will do and discuss a lot of openings and the ideas behind them, and we will mention all of those. g6. Getting the bishop to g7. It is called in chess fianchetto your bishop, when the g pawn moves and the bishop gets into those squares, either on the king side or on the queen side. And this is the king's Indian. If it's done the other way, it is usually referred as the queen's Indian. Knight to c3, developing the knight and putting the pawn in the center, is the most common continuation. Anand did it tiny bit differently. First playing f3. Gelfand challenges the center. Anand doesn't wish to allow, for example, let's see, after e4, capture, the queen is out already. We mentioned that in many situations this will be considered a disadvantage. Look, attacking the queen. Now the queen has to move again, so black is gaining time. This is why we do not want to get our queen too fast, too early. So Anand pushes again. Alright, so Anand so far only played with his pawns. They conquer important squares in the center, and now he's developing his other pieces. A very interesting and highly level idea of maneuver. Normally we would go with this knight, but Anand has some ideas and plans for his other knight. So black is a little bit ahead in development. He already developed 2 pieces and castled, while white developed only 1 piece but managed to get his pawns to control some important squares. This is normal chess. This is how we play the battle of development and space. Okay. Knight to h5. The purpose of this move, we said not really to put knight on the edge of the board that often, but Gelfand would like at some point to consider e5 and f5, so the knight clears the way for the f pawn to advance. This is the idea. Well, Anand sees his opponent's idea and doesn't want to allow the e pawn to advance, right? The e pawn is pinned. A pin in chess is when a pawn or a piece cannot or should not move. There is an absolute pin, which means the king is behind it and moving the piece will expose the king to a check. Then it is illegal move. It is legal to play this move, right? Here the computer allowed me to do it, but you don't really want to give up your queen in that way. So legal, yes, this move, but not very correct for black. Gelfand played bishop to f6, willing to exchange the bishops. If the bishop goes away, he would like to continue with his plan and then move the bishop somewhere and continue with challenging the center. Anand took, and capturing with the knight is possible, but Gelfand had a really interesting idea. He's giving himself double pawns. Usually we would say that this is a bad idea. But not all double pawns are bad, first of all. If they are isolated by themselves, we would consider them bad. But you can see that there is a complex of pawns around there. So we cannot really say that black has really weak pawns. This is the first part. The second part is that black immediately is going to challenge the center. His move f5 will attack white's e-pawn, so this weakness on f6 is not permanent. It's not going to be here forever. Black will be easily able to exchange it. Anand plays queen to d2. A normal move. There were some other possibilities in the position. And f5. Anand captures and black capture. Okay. Through this game we can also discuss and mention tiny bit few tactical ideas. For example, this one. g4. What is the idea of this move? Well, it is attacking the bishop and attacking the knight. You see the shape that is on the board. That's why it's called, surprisingly enough, a fork. When a pawn or a piece, a pawn can maximum attack 2 pieces, but a piece can attack many. A knight, for example, look at the knight here. If it will be attacking 3 different pieces, that's a fork. It can, anything above 2 is a fork. Pawn can maximum do 2, obviously, but there are some positions that a knight is forking 2 or 3 or even 4 pieces. But black is not yet going to lose a piece for the pawn. He gives check. And white, instead of playing bishop e2, he doesn't want his bishop to be pinned. Very bizarre and rarely, but very strong in this position. Excellent calculation by the world champion, of course. Moves his king away. Is not afraid not to castle. Usually, we have already discussed it. Castling is really important because that's where the king is safe. But in this position, Anand accurately calculate and evaluate that he does not have to castle. His king is safe enough in the center. And why? There are not enough opponent pieces around it to attack it. Now, why did I say that black is not losing a piece? Because he doesn't have to move the bishop back or to move the knight. He can use the bishop to capture the knight. So the bishop moved, capturing the knight. Anand took that bishop. If he had taken the knight, the bishop would have gone back, and that's an excellent bishop. So by exchanging, black gained some time. He gave the bishop for a knight. He didn't lose material. And now it is very interesting. The knight is under attack. No doubts about that. Moving the knight back would be the most logical move. But Gelfand was somewhat annoyed by the fact that white has such a big space advantage. White will put his king on c2. Not easy for black to go and attack it. If you play knight a6 with the idea maybe to attack it with a check, well, it's not that horrible. White can move the rook, for example, to allow his king to go back to defensive square. But white can also just play a3, not allowing the knight to go at all to b4. So despite the fact that white didn't castle, his king cannot come under attack. It is like, how would I put it? If there is a sound in a forest and no one can hear it, well, I'm not getting into the philosophical question, does it exist or not? But in reality, whether it exists or not, big philosophical question. Who am I to answer it? But it will have no effect. No one can hear it. It doesn't exist in reality. Now, the king didn't castle, but it cannot come under attack. This is what Gelfand didn't like, that white will have more space, and it is white that will start launching an attack, making effort to make his rook open the file for the rook, and combine it with the bishop, and maybe some queen jumping, all those pieces, I drew the arrows. They're aiming to attack black king that doesn't have that many defenders around it. So what did Gelfand play? He played queen f6. Now, the challenger to the world championship, did he overlook this move that his knight is under attack? Why don't you pause for a second and think, what would be his idea? Did he just blunder the game here? Well, the answer is yes, he did blunder the game, but he had an idea. His idea is that after the knight is being captured, he will take the pawn, a double attack, some sort of a fork, right? The queen is attacking, is checking white's king, and also going to capture the rook. This is what Gelfand thought will happen. So Anand would not be able to capture the knight, because black will capture the pawn and can capture the rook, giving a knight, which is 3 pawns, and getting a rook and a pawn 6 points, seems pretty excellent. And if Anand will just defend the pawn, then the knight, instead of going back, will occupy this extremely nice square, the f4 square. This was the idea by Gelfand. But he overlooked something very, very tricky from Anand. Anand, after 2 minutes of thinking, even less, Anand was known when he was young to be the fastest player in the world by far, playing games super quickly, sometimes too quickly. By the way, I do not recommend or suggest this to everyone. Even Anand, one of the greatest talents of all times, paid in some games a heavy price for being so fast and not being able to slow down. But in this situation, what he saw, he just gave away 3 points. He played one move, and amazingly enough, Gelfand resigned. His move was Queen f2. In order to understand this move, we need to figure out what's going on here. White gave away 3 points of material. That's quite a lot. Okay, he gave away 3 points of material. But he would like to trap the queen. If the bishop goes out, you see the rook, which is only 5 points, attacking the queen 9-10 points. If he will get the queen, he will be ahead in material and attacking black king. But the queen has this escape square and black escapes. Gelfand said after it in an interview that he was looking at such ideas and he played queen and he thought about the move queen f4 with the same plan. For example, bishop h3, but here his queen can escape this way. Anand move is just perfect. It's taking control over the g1 square. It's taking control over the f3 square. And next move, the threat is to move the bishop out, and the queen will be lost for a rook, with white having a huge material advantage, plus black's king is weak. The best move that black could have played is to play this knight out. The idea is that he has a very tricky idea. Look, if the bishop goes out with the same plan, super tricky from black. He's first going to give a check. Remember, it's a forcing move, check. The opponent has to move, and now the knight will be defending the queen. So what would Anand have played after knight here? He cannot trap the queen, but he would just capture it. And his pieces will occupy incredible squares. In reality, this is just a winning position for white. Despite the material being around equal, the two pieces will combine greatly to go and attack black's vulnerable king together with the rook and the pawn that might attack. This is a lost position. Gelfand, little bit disgusted by overlooking this move, just resigned here and making it the shortest official game in a world championship match. Only 17 moves. Usually we see games 30-40 moves in any Grandmaster level. Moves under 20-25 with a decision, a victory for one player under 20-25 moves are considered quite fast games, or actually very fast. Under 20, I would say even very fast game. So material, a trapped queen, you know, one of the chapters I'm thinking for the future will be trapped pieces, how pieces get trapped, one gets material advantage and win. This was the way that Anand won this game immediately after a loss. The next 4 games were draws, so the official score after 12 games was 6-6. And in the tiebreak, despite being worse in many of the games, well, it was actually Anand that came on top, managed to win 1 game, and 3 of the games were draws, and retained his title. This match was held in April-May 2012 in Moscow. So this is just one nice game, recent one, decided the World Championship. There was fight for space, there was fight for development, and there was a blunder that cost black material, and after it his game was just lost and he resigned. Well, we will definitely look at many more games, but for now, with a deciding game in the World Championship, I would like to wrap this first video for beginners that I've made. I hope that you enjoyed it very much, and I hope that we can produce many other videos on the endless amount of topics in chess that we need to know and discuss in order to improve. Thank you for joining me here, and enjoy. Bye bye.